Hey everyone, my name is Zed, and this is Amir. All right, and this will be a continuation of what our initial podcast was on. Primarily, we were focused on our careers, what our goals, what our intentions, and where we're really trying to go. So particularly today, I actually wanted to start with Amir and um, ask him how 2024, the trends that you've seen at your workplace. You talked to me about cars being very interesting, interest rates for car loans going up, and therefore that caused a lot of change in the dynamics of your workplace. And now it's basically end of year. Like how did that whole year go, and what kind of changes did you see at work?
Absolutely. Well, with the 2024, the start of the year, interest rates were a lot higher. Markets were much slower. Car sales, especially cars over 30,000, were not moving. We were getting a lot of this from different types of industries. Houses weren't moving. Luxury watches weren't selling as well. Across the board, people were spending less money. What we're noticing, though, is starting this fall,
Mhm.
things are starting to become a bit more positive. People are still a little bit tight, but that dramatic reduction in interest rates, we had a 50 basis point drop recently, and it's expected to hit, 2% by the summertime, 2025. That's giving a positive outlook to people, and I'm seeing car sales pick up a bit, at least for us. Even a little bit higher end items are moving quicker. It's giving a very good indication, especially for things that are recreational or luxury items. We see that in the car industry and even in jewelry, watches.
So have you noticed that like your commuter point A to point B, let's just call it as it is, like the Corollas and the Camrys.
Right.
Have you really seen that those type of cars are just flying off a lot, where you've seen, hey, BMWs, Mercedes, more luxury cars, they sell a lot, little bit longer?
Exactly.
Mhm.
The perfect point is the under sub $20,000 car.
Mhm.
And we're getting a lot of customers coming through, looking for even less than $10,000.
Right, right.
Things that don't need financing. Yeah, there's many people just walking into our shop and saying, "Hey, what do you got for less than $10,000? I'm gonna buy it right. I don't care what it is. I don't want to finance it. You get it cash. And if it's in good shape, it's a done deal." Unfortunately, those are very hard to come by. At least ones that are in good shape.
Good shape, yeah.
And we're very reputation heavy. We don't want to sell garbage to people. It's very easy to find cheap cars, but not good quality cheap cars. Yeah. So that's definitely, as you said, that's been the peak right now. Any car that's like that won't last, even a week. It's gone. Even people that don't look at it online, just driving by on the street, will stop by and purchase it.
Yeah, it's very interesting you say that with more of a luxury item mindset, right? It's beyond a certain price point, everyone thinks, hey, that's luxury at that point. It reminds me of like, so I work at Square One, about my clinic there, and particularly Holt Renfrew is a store that we saw a big change in. So typically, when I was talking to the employees there, because there's a lot of those employees are my patients, and they were saying how historically they would have customers that come in that don't look at price, right? The company, you'll in that kind of a market, you'll have both. You'll always have customers don't look at price, but some obviously do. How they've really changed, they've seen a change in the past year, where most customers are getting at that point, they're looking for a deal. Whereas for Hold Renfrew, they're bread and butter are the customers that will come in and grab whatever, and they're not price conscious at all, right?
Yeah.
But there's a change, a big change in dynamic there, and I've seen it in Hold Renfrew. I've seen it overall at Square One. We've actually seen some interesting stores kind of closed down recently too. What's that store? It's Ferragamo or Ferragamo, however you pronounce that. That actually recently closed that Square One, which was interesting to me because they only have basically three locations. They had Eat Center, they had Yorkdale and Square One, which makes sense. Those are the biggest malls, right?
That's like surprising that if
Yes,
it's Square One,
yes,
that's bad news.
just last year. Oh, sorry, last month. Sorry, that's what I meant to say. Just about a month ago, they
Yeah.
closed down. But now that's not scary in the sense that like it's end all be all, everything's going down the drain. No, Hugo Boss, for example, just opened up a Square One. Okay, yeah, Hugo Boss is a little bit of a different market than Ferragamo or Ferragamo, however that's pronounced. But the point is that the very high end luxury market has definitely changed, And it's interesting to see how 2025 will go. Will it have a full restart, or is it going to be a slow restart? I mean, I think time will tell. But you also mentioned interest rates, right? How did that affect the used car market? Because I remember you mentioning how new cars, they've really reduced their interest rates to incentivize new car sales, where if you were getting a used car, the interest rate was much higher. And so it didn't make sense at that point. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So
How did it affect you guys as well, right?
absolutely. So besides people having less money to spend on luxury items, used cars that are priced higher, say 30,000 and above, they qualify for higher interest rates, unfortunately. So if you were to go to a bank, any used car dealership, if it's being financed through a bank, you're looking at interest rates starting 7, 8% and higher, right? And when you have new car companies that are selling, let's say a Toyota Corolla, that's a $32,000 MSRP, right? And say they have a finance special for 1.9% or 0%,
Change, yeah.
right? And now we have a used car, it could have been $50,000 new,
Yeah.
but it's $30,000 now. And we're financing it at 8%, right? Now that customer has a decision to make.
Right.
Do they go and buy a brand new Corolla for the same payment or even actually a lower payment
Lower payment.
than the car we have for their F-House, right? So their options become way more expansive, and it hurts used car sales because of that. Depending on the car, of course, but generally that's what helps trend our best performing products, the lower end, more affordable vehicles.
Right.
Because those are cars that typically people don't normally finance, and if they do, it's a very, very, very
Small amount, right?
right.
So it's almost irrelevant with the interest rates high.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So that's why we've seen that shift. It's a double-edged sword. But if moving into 2025, if those interest rates keep dropping, it makes things more affordable for the used car market, because a lot of people buy cars with their home equity line of credit, and that's interest rate dependent. So that's where a lot of people's cash lies. Surprisingly, most people don't just have cash in the bank, even those people who are buying things for cash.
Yeah.
That's a little known fact that people don't really take into consideration, is when most of the customers coming in to buy a car and they say they're buying it cash, they're actually taking it from their line of credit. And so that really impacts their decision on what they can afford. And when interest rates start coming down, the housing market picks back up, which is tied to their home equity line of credit. They go and refinance, they get more capital available to them at a lower interest rate. Then they start feeling good. They feel, on paper, they feel rich. And then you'll get things like boat purchases, more luxury car purchases, just spending money easier and not so conservative as it is right now. So that's how those interest rates are really impacting.
Now, have you seen a change? Because I think last time I talked to you about this was about almost 2 to 3 months ago. Has that changed them at all in the last month? And have you seen towards like year end now that Christmas is coming up, any changes in that market at all?
So it's been more or less the same.
The same.
Right now, especially for the car industry, there's a lot of distraction because people are doing holiday shopping. It's gonna pick back up for car market in December towards the holidays. But generally, what we're seeing is more of a focus on holiday shopping, and very much of what we're seeing since the fall. What is going to change things is, I believe the Bank of Canada has a rate announcement coming up.
Yeah. It's like a week or two, right?
That's right. Yeah, sometime in December.
Yeah.
Judging by how that goes, there's talk that they may cut it 50 basis points, which is a huge cut.
That'd be a huge cut.
And that's going to make a big difference in people's
Ability to spend there. Yeah.
Now, if they make a 25 basis point cut, that's going to help as well. It'll be in the positive direction, but people won't be as
Incentivized. Yeah.
incentivized. Exactly. We get that 50 basis points. The 2025 will start off strong. There's a lot of talk about the spring housing market picking up dramatically because of that. And if that happens, then the rest of the things in the economy will pick up as well. And when housing, as I mentioned before, picks up, your home equity line of credit, you have more equity available to you, which means you're going to spend more money. The bulk majority of people.
So I also an interesting point. Then we'll move on. The in the winter, I've noticed that you said that you have less tire kickers, right? You have people that are more serious about buying cars and stuff. And so right now, when customers come in, they're more like, "In hey, I'm trying to actually buy a car. I'm not here trying to waste your time." Would that be pretty fair to say?
Yeah, not to say that the summer is full of tire kickers, but what we find is when the weather is nice outside, people just tend to be, let's say it's a Saturday, yeah, it's a beautiful summer day.
Yeah.
People tend to be driving around like, hey, let's go stop in here and see what this is about.
Yeah.
Ask some questions, look at some cars. Not really there to buy a car, but more just to spend their free time. But in the winter, given it being so cold, it's less likely for somebody to be driving around on a Saturday when it's -10 outside and say, hey, you know what? Let's go stand in the cold and look at that bar car, right? So that's the biggest difference there. So we see people noticing the car, they need a car, and when they show up, it's okay. I like this car. That's all by Jay. That's all about it. Yeah.
What would you say your top? This is actually why I want to ask that question. What do you think is your top 2 to 3 pet peeves when it comes to the customers you get here, or maybe in the car market overall? And it could, you know what? I'll ask this: one from a consumer point, the customers that you actually get, and then I want like 2 to 3 pet peeves that people don't think about. It could be from your vendors, could be from financing people, tire shops, rims, stuff that people haven't really thought.
So
Those are first customers.
yeah, customers. I wouldn't say it's the customers themselves that have pet peeves. For me, it's more just the industry's stereotype to people. The used car industry is not a very reputable industry, as or most people know.
Right, they're scared to come in and all that.
Right. The last thing somebody wants to deal with is a car salesman.
Right.
Right. And
A pushy one at that.
exactly.
Yeah.
And anytime people come in, they have their guard out, right? And it's not about the pet peeve for me is people coming in with that stereotype from the get go.
Right. Which you have to fight against.
Yes, that's right. But it's not that we have to necessarily fight it. It's that even when you're presenting them the most honest information, everything being transparent, it's still
Like they're skeptical, right?
yeah, they're not just skeptical, but there's still a scary experience for them doing this big transaction, given the used car or car sales reputation. There's a lot more effort on our part to show them that no, that's not nothing to be scared of if you're at the right place. I'm not saying that every car sales place is going to treat a customer amazing or be transparent or not or actually have their interests in mind as well. But we know, at our dealership that the only way forward is the long-term outlook. We need people coming back, being happy with us. So that I would say is a pet peeve is on an industry as a whole, not necessarily from the customer. And it's not the customer's fault. Unfortunately, there's
It is what the industry is.
correct.
Right.
Sales is not always the cleanest profession, and cars can be tricky. There's a lot of moving parts in it, and you can't brush everybody with the same color there, but there is unfortunately.
So you mentioned like basically sticker shock is what you're saying, because we're saying, hey, it's a large transaction and people were just scared that, hey, everything's going to go well, blah, blah, blah. Now with houses, the sticker shock is way, way higher. But I feel that, the market's not the same. They have more trust factors with realtors and stuff. Like, why do you think that's the case with cars versus a house that's even
Well, and the interesting thing with houses is that you what you see is what you get for the most part. Unless you're buying a very old house and there's like hidden, foundation damage and mold or something like that, which hopefully you got a good home inspector to find for you. But you can see the problems with the house, right? You walk into a house, you can see, the drywall's cracked. Maybe there's some water damage here. Maybe the furnace is a bit too old. You're probably going to have to replace it. There's maintenance. With a car, unless you're very knowledgeable about cars or you have a mechanic background, you're gonna be coming to a car and saying, hey, can this car give me problems? Am I gonna have engine issues? Is it gonna have transmission issues? I'm about to put this much money into a car. How do I know that when I drive it off the lot, or even if I buy it privately, that
Right.
a week later it's not going to cost me $5,000 to fix it, and money I don't have, right? And I think that's the biggest outlook, is that there are people who out there that are just caring about the money and the profit and not caring about their reputation. So, they may take a car that is, say, $20,000 and they know it has a problem, and they offload it to an unsuspecting customer knowing that it's going to have a $5,000 fix, right? That's not right. And the customer is going to take that car and a few weeks later realize now they got to put another $5,000 into it. That's what ruins the reputation, but also scares people, because it's not only a big investment, but it's something that people are buying without having the knowledge of, as you can't necessarily know or see the problem evidently when you're buying a car, whereas you can with a house for the most part. And, at the end of the day, a house is generally an appreciating asset. So it helps offset any potential issues. And practically all cars, especially your everyday car, is a depreciating liability. I wouldn't even call it an asset. And so you have to look at those things more carefully.
Now, do you think that there's any skew, like you're saying, appreciating asset, right? Like with house market, primarily, your condos have decreased overall in the GTA about 20%, right, price wise. So if you 2 years ago bought that house at 100K, it might be at around 800K right now. Or sorry, $1 million, it might be at 800K right now. Yeah. So not necessarily appreciating asset at this point. Now, and also let me give you this. Now, if you bought a apartment, right? If you could bought it from a reputable builder, right? Yes, I think it's gonna be pretty reliable. Maybe you got a Toyota at that point, right? Whereas there's so many uh condos in downtown Toronto right now that have been built by let's say builders that weren't as reputable. Like for example, there was this one apartment that I was or it was on the news that like when you opened the door, you actually walked into the bedroom. Like I don't know how that got approved, but it did, right? And so per square foot, that unit was still trying to go for about $1,400 per square foot. Whereas like in the used realtor market, there was competition going from 900 to 1,000. So very hard to sell that unit for 1,400, especially given the layout that I just described. So do you think maybe there's some recency bias with like the house market, and like, it typically will appreciate. So now we're saying, hey, you know, probably if I buy a house now in the next 5 years, probably appreciate again. You think there's a lot of recency there. And I agree with your point where even if the house doesn't appreciate, it probably stays pretty steady. Yeah. However, when costs come up in houses, right? I'm trying to compare and contrast. Like when costs come up in houses, like you buy a house and you don't realize that actually there's like a huge hole behind the fridge, right? You don't realize actually, oh, the roof looks pretty good, but actually there's like a tear in 3 different places, and actually the roof needed to be replaced yesterday. So that's going to be a $25,000 house or $25,000 cost,
Right.
depending on house. Houses have different requirements versus condos. Well, you bought the condo, for example, I was living in the M City buildings, and the furnace wasn't even working, the AC wasn't working. I was there for a year, right? A brand new condo with M City. It's got the brand name and all that stuff. Nothing worked in that place, right? So, I mean, I'm just trying to logic it from the consumer standpoint as well. Like, use like you have to be knowledgeable. You have to do your research to come and buy a car. You have to be knowledgeable, do your research when you buy the house. But maybe I think we may see. Maybe I'm just forecasting here, but maybe we may see this in the next few years, where people are more cautious now about buying houses, because they've been dealt with the worst end of the stick. Yeah. Because everyone who's bought in the last 2 years basically has, is what I'm trying to say. Now, if they bought it previously, you might be breaking, right? Maybe you bought it in 2019, 2020, you saw a bit of appreciation and depreciation, you're okay.
In any purchase you make, you have to do your due diligence, right? Even a house, or
What I'm trying to say, yeah, right? Like, see, if a consumer is coming in, right, And they're saying, "Oh, now I bought a car. This must be the frustrating part for you. Oh, I bought a car for Mir, right? And it doesn't matter. BMW, Toyota, whatever, Lexus, it doesn't matter. And 6 months later, oh, it needed, a wheel alignment. Well, that's pretty normal. I need a new battery for it, right? Now they come back, oh, your car sucked, the car that you gave me, right? Like, do you have that examples and stuff like that that's happening that are unreasonable in nature? And that then again, they're like, oh, he's again the used guy I've gotten, you know?
I surprisingly, I haven't had a concrete example. I've had only one,
Mhm.
and that was a gentleman who purchased a truck. It was a Toyota Tundra, and had an opportunity to go through the truck,
Right.
and everything was disclosed. He wasn't exactly happy with the way the parking sensors were working.
Do you mind sharing like a little bit more details about the car, how old it was, and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it was a 10-year-old Tundra.
So like a 2014, 15, something like that.
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
And it had parking sensors, and it had a backup camera.
Right.
And this customer had 2 hours at the car. Really checked everything out. And we encourage that, right? Like I want to make sure that anytime someone buys something from our dealership, every single detail is disclosed. I don't want any surprises.
Mhm.
And so, he a week later, he was backing up somewhere, and he says, "Oh, the parking sensors aren't as sensitive as I thought." Right?
Yeah.
And he said, "That's very important to me.
Right.
Even though I have a backup camera, those parking sensors have to be
Like
spot on."
yeah.
And I said, that's something that you had an opportunity to take a look at before you bought the car, but also that's something that
It's manufacturers.
yeah, it's not really within my control. That's something that you can, if you want, you can go get checked out, but that's not something that I can rectify. Now, at the end of the day, I still offered that gentleman to go and get a quote to see how much it would cost to repair, and he never got back to me. So I said, you know what? Take it in, see what the problem is. For the sensitivity, maybe it just needs to be cleaned. I don't know. And when they tell you the problem, let me know. I'm assuming that whoever he took it to, if he did take it to, probably said this is normal,
Yeah.
and I didn't get a call back. So there is situations like that. But surprisingly, and maybe luckily, probably because our full disclosure of values here,
Right. Yeah. You us every year. Transparent person.
we don't have.
That happening as much. I've also noticed that your dealership particularly, it's not a plug or anything, but you guys find really clean cars. You're not about having a large inventory. You're about having a good inventory. So if you've got 10 cars, those all those 10 cars are good cars. Like those are cars you will want to purchase for your own family. This are lower in mileage, might be older, but they're like really well taken care of. Like I'm not sure what you're doing in your processes there, but I think that's probably a reflection of that back end where you don't get that negative feedback from the customers as such. Yeah. I mean, there's also examples that you gave me before as well. There, I think it was that BMW, right? That you sold, I think last year, and then it had a transmission issue. So then, like you ended up paying the customer for the cost and all that other stuff, right? So there's things like that that happen as well.
Yeah, so that one, that wasn't a BMW. So there was a Ford.
No, wasn't it a transmission cover or seal or something? No.
Oh, so that one last year? No, that wasn't a transmission. That was like the oil pan had a gasket.
Oh, just the oil panel.
Yeah, apparently there was like some slight leakage on it from there, and we paid to get that fixed.
Yeah. So that's a so honest for.
So yeah, that was even during the safety inspection, they didn't even catch that.
Right.
And the customer said, "Hey, this is what's going on," and that's something that's serious enough for us.
Yeah.
And we covered to get that fixed.
Yeah. Yeah. That must have taken a hit on that profit. That's for sure.
Absolutely. So
But you have wins. You have wins.
yeah, being honest costs a lot of money, right?
But
But go ahead. But the advantage of being honest is that you have a sustainable business.
Yeah.
Obviously,
the baby at night.
absolutely. Although I don't get much sleep because I'm working all the time.
Yeah.
But that's the two biggest things. Is that people want to come back. People tell their friends about you. I just had a customer here the other day who came to stop by just to say hi, and just because of the way we took care of them, he said, "Amir, we had the best summer because of you." Because this car was reliable. Me and my family drove everywhere in this car. We went on road trips. Thank you so much. Anybody who asked me for a car, even myself, only you. Like, I only trust you, right?
No.
And that means that your business can continue. You can continue flourishing and grow.
Right. You're doing something right.
But also, it gives you a fulfilling feeling, because the only way that I think, my personal opinion, that you feel fulfilled is when you do things for other people. No matter what industry you're in or what you're doing, if you're not helping other people do better or become better, you're uh, not living a fulfilled life.
Mhm. So what's your now I think it's been almost 2 years you've been open, right? I think you've really figured out what the market is. I think you've done a really good job of figuring out, I don't know how you get these cars, but you did whatever the process is, it's a good process. I can definitely see that. What's your next step and what's your 5-year goal? Because I think that is probably the most important. 10-year goals probably change depending on how the 5-year goals go and stuff. But what's your next step in 5 years?
The next step in 5 years is really scaling what we have. This process, these cars, these relationships, the scaling it as much as possible. Now our goal is to become York Region's largest volume used car dealer, and within the next 5 years. And our 10-year plan is to become Ontario's largest volume used car dealer. And so that's our vision. And every day we work towards doing that. And the only way you can really scale to that point is through relationships. That's what I've really discovered in the past 2 years. That's my biggest one.
We need some examples. I think that relationship part is extremely important, right? Why? Like I think a lot of people talk about it, right? Like relationship part, blah blah blah. Give me some examples of what has gone through in the last 2 years where a by the way relationship that developed became this big thing, right? Or helped you be more successful in your clinical or in your work processes and stuff like that. Like, give us some examples.
Yeah. So earlier on, in the first year of operating, there was a gentleman I met at a car club I'm part of. And this gentleman used to be a used car manager, used to be a general manager at a dealership, at big dealerships, has a lot of relationships, and had a lot of great feedback and advice. And building friendship, he's now a really good friend of mine. Building relationships with some people like that, particularly this individual, really helped get me ahead. It prevented me from learning things the hard way in many areas, and gave me pointers and things, because I was never in the industry before. 2 years ago was my very first at bat in the car industry. So that was huge. And then those relationships built on top of each other, right? This gentleman knew several other people, but also getting involved in different things in the industry or in the car community. We had a lot of new relationships. For instance, I know some new general managers of big dealerships around the Greater Toronto area, and that's helped a lot in both valuable knowledge in how to operate a dealership, but also in ways of finding and sourcing inventory, getting help with that. And more than anything, it's having a level of mentorship. And that really helps guide you from not making mistakes. And it's not that mistakes are necessarily bad, they're good learning experiences, but having somebody to guide you speeds up the process. If you have the right people around you, your 5-year plan could potentially happen in 2 years,
Right.
right? So why not? The more everything I've learned is that you need speed in your operation. And any business that you're doing or in life, you need to act quickly. If you're gonna fail, fail quickly. If you're gonna
Move on. If you need to move on, rip on quickly. Yeah.
and if you keep pondering and you keep not learning from your mistakes and repeating things and taking things slowly and not having a sense of urgency, you're never gonna make it.